Hello everyone, I'm so glad you joined me today. Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica and today we're going to be coloring these purple colored pencil tulips and just remembering the hope we have in Jesus' resurrection. Even though I know over the next month we're going to be spending time reflecting on his sacrifice, I thought it would be good to get something going that we can have to decorate our homes when Easter morning arrives. All right, well, let's get started. So what I've done is I've printed this picture off on cardstock. Now this cardstock is from Michael's. It's just the Recollections brand. It's kind of a nice level of smoothness, not super textured, but it'll give us a tiny little bit of tooth to be able to use our colored pencil on. So what I'm going to do to get started, this is something I like to do with all of my florals pretty much, is to actually use the color yellow. I'm using Canary Yellow, and this is, it's in a pencil extender, so don't worry, it's just short. And I'm going to go ahead and color a little bit of yellow in a few areas. Now, actually, before we get started, let's do a little practice. I'm just going to grab a sheet of paper here. And one of the things I really like doing when I work in colored pencils is to work with kind of a circular motion with light pressure, especially when I'm starting out a painting or a picture, whatever I'm doing. I like to start very light. So let's practice that circular light pressure motion. And then when we get the hang of it, we're going to add a little bit of a different technique for color gradation to it. So I'm just going to start out, and you can see I'm just using kind of a soft circular motion, and I'm holding further back on the pencil. And this is one reason a pencil extender is helpful, is because if your pencil gets too short and you're holding near the end, you're going to actually have less control over your pencil, which sounds funny. We usually are, especially when we write, we hold a pencil, close to the tip, but that can actually end up making you have really heavy pencil work, and it also can it makes it really hard to keep this light pressure at the beginning, and you can end up going too hard too soon and not being able to add enough layers. So yeah, just start with lighter pressure, and awkward as it is, hold further back on the pencil until you get past the initial stages of your drawing or your coloring, your painting, whatever we want to call it. So just practice that a little bit, and when you feel comfortable, we're going to add a little bit more of a technique to get lighter and darker values as well. So this is our light kind of medium value, and we're going to flip the page or the little scrap of paper over to the back, and we're going to practice working from light to dark and then from dark to light, because this is something we're going to be using again and again as we do this particular picture, and pretty much whenever you're working in colored pencils. So let's start with the same thing we've been doing, but almost try and go lighter if you can, almost like a whisper. And then we're going to just kind of create a strip, and as we go, we're going to increase our pressure. So, I feel like I'm already getting a little heavier than I'd like to be, but okay. Yeah, that's heavier than I'd like to be to start with, but we'll try the next time around to get a little bit lighter. Okay, so as I'm going along here, I'm adding a little more pressure and layering it a little bit. I'm just going to keep moving along here, applying a little more pressure as I go. And as I get heavier, I can actually start moving my fingertips closer to the tip of my pencil. So let's move down and carry on. I might have taken a bit of a jump. Let's try and keep this kind of smooth. We want a nice smooth transition from light to dark. And this is just a good exercise to do, just to get a hang of this pencil pressure thing, and even just how you're holding the pencil. It'll get easier with time. It does take practice to get the smooth transition going on. You can even see I've got it's not perfect. Okay, I'm going to go heavier, so I'm inching closer to the tip of the pencil, and I'm really pushing hard. we go. I think we've got almost about as hard as we can go with this particular color of pink. Now I chose to use pink because I've got my purple pencils sharpened here, and I figure why sharpen them more than I have to. So doing the practice with a pencil that I'm not planning to use in the painting of the picture. So let's go ahead and do the reverse now. So we're going to start heavy. And work my way towards light. And this is something that you're going to want to be able to do when you're trying to create shadows that kind of just gradually go from a dark shadow to kind of a light tone. So again, now as I'm working my way into the lights, I'm going to move my hand further back on the pencil so that I have, again, the ability to control my pressure. Like I say, if you've never held this far back on a pencil, you're going to go, that's awkward. But the more you do it, easier it gets, and you'll actually realize it does help. Especially when you get to this really soft pressure here where I'm just trying to just barely get it on the page. It's almost like a whisper. That's better. I'm happier with my lights down here than I was up here. So I think that's good enough. Let's go ahead and start coloring our tulips. So let's go grab our picture. All right, so first things first, let's go grab our yellow again. I'll just move this out of the way for us. Okay, so I'm going to apply the yellow in a few places, somewhere closer to the ends of the tulip petals. What you don't want to do is get too heavy down at the base. These particular petals, or I should say tulips, don't have yellow at the base. They're actually a deep purple. However, some tulips you will find are yellow at the base, but these ones aren't. So we're just going to put them put the yellow rather, a little closer to the top. All right, this one on up here, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of yellow as well. Oops, bumping my pencils here. All right, I'm going to put a little bit here. And again, I'm using very soft pressure right now. Very light-handed pressure because I have more layers to go, and I don't want a lot of yellow on these tulips, just a tiny bit. We're almost done the yellow. I'm just going to go ahead and get this petal here, and just we want to touch a bit on this petal. There's a fair amount of shadow on this petal, but still we'll try and get a little bit of yellow in a few spots. So our first purple that we're going to be using is this light color. It's called Lilac, and we want to just get it just as kind of like a smooth coat, if you will, over everything except where the yellow is. So this step is just going to be just a very basic smooth layer, doing circular motion. There's really not much to it other than just filling this area in. So it's going to take a few minutes. Just relax. This part is just very therapeutic. You can just, listen to something like a podcast or some music and just go ahead and just fill the entire two tulips with this color, except for where you've got yellow. This is where you're going to want to get closer to the yellow, but lighten off before you actually touch it. So as long as you do that, you're good to go. Just go softly everywhere. And if you find yourself sometimes this will happen as you do circular coloring, you can end up kind of getting a little bit of a linear motion in your circles. That's fine. Try and keep that linear motion moving in the direction of these little creases that you can see and little folds in the petals. Try not to get anything too wild going the opposite direction of these little lines. right, let's zoom in and do some more detailed work. This is the part that gets exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the mulberry pencil this time. It's kind of a beautiful pink slash purple color. It's just a nice in between. And it's deeper and darker than the colors we've used so far. So this is where we're going to have to start varying our pressure using some of the techniques that we discussed earlier. So we're going to change our pressure. Then we're also going to get a little bit of texture going too. But let's start with pressure, then we'll add the texture. Pressure first and texture as we go. But what we're going to do is just start with lighter pressure and heavier variation. I'm going to start with a little bit of light pressure here. And I'm going to deepen that pressure pretty quickly as I come to the base of this petal. So I'm going to just put a little more pressure and try and lighten up as I move up the petal, and more pressure at the base. So if you want to start by just getting this base kind of full or filled to a certain point with this color, you can. Just be really careful. You don't want to have any major jumps as you climb from dark to light, but I'm just going to try and get that on there and then work my way up. You can see I've definitely got a jump there that I'm just trying to smooth out. And like I said, I'm just going to move my hand up the pencil so I have a little more control. There we go. So as you can see here, we're getting a nice soft gradation happening. And as we work our way up, we can go ahead. It's okay to put a little bit of this mulberry on the yellow, not covering the yellow, but it's okay if it touches it. So it sort of helps just make the yellow feel like it belongs. So just put a tiny bit towards the edges of the yellow, kind of leave the center of the yellow alone. So let's just go all over the place. And this is where we're going to also start to add a little bit of texture. So we're getting that nice variation in color or value, but we want to also get a little bit of flicking happening. And by flicking, I mean, let me just grab a scrap of paper here, move this out of the way. And what we're going to do, actually, let's just grab our pink pencil or another pencil. One of the ones, sorry, let's grab this blue one. I don't want to have to sharpen my purple pencils more than I have to. Let's go ahead and do some flicking with this blue. It doesn't matter what color you pick. Anyways, so I'm going to just put a little pressure at the beginning and then almost lighten up. So I'm just kind of almost swinging my wrist here. And I'm getting, you can sometimes have a curved motion. Sometimes you're going to end up with a straighter line, but you're basically starting the stroke heavy and lightening up. So it's, you have a slight swing in your hand motion here. So just go ahead and do that. And we're going to be using that on our tulip. So let's bring our tulip back over. Once you feel comfortable, you can practice as much as you need to. And we'll bring our tulip back over and do this with our mulberry again, the same color we've been using. We're going to start getting a little bit of texture as well. So this is where we're going to be putting the texture, where you can see these little creases, and they're already kind of there for you on the coloring page. You can just kind of almost like trace them and work your way down so they're a little bit heavier at the top. Be careful along the top edge of the petal. You can go a lot heavier at the base. So like I'm at the base, pushing quite a bit harder, and then kind of swinging this motion upwards, and I'm trying to keep it going in the same direction that these little creases would be going in the petal. So just, you can vary it. You can go a little lighter if you need to just fill in the space a little without being quite so harsh. And you can just decide how intense you want this to be. You can have a lot of texture, or you can just really be soft and not have much at all. I really like a lot of texture just to show the, I guess you could say the movement within the, in the petal, just as it folds and curves and all the rest. I'm going to put a little bit down here. And some of it can be a bit tricky as you go. You'll be like, huh, where am I supposed to curve that? Or where does it join? Just do your best You can follow along and you should be okay. I don't really like quite how I've curved that one. I'll see if I can just put some straight to cover it. If not, I can always just erase a tiny little bit. This is a nice eraser for doing tiny corrections. It's a pen eraser. It's by Tombow. It's just got a nice tip and it allows you to just kind of gently go into a small space and just kind of clean it up without making a big mess everywhere. Now, as you start to apply more pressure, the other thing that you might have happening is you may end up with a little bit of your pencil flaking off. And if that happens, I'm going to show you what you want to use here. Is this brush is actually a makeup brush. It's not used. It's just a cheap one from like Walmart or somewhere. And it's perfect for if you get any little teeny, almost like you want to call them crumbs from your pencil. You just brush it off. If you try and use your hand, which I've done, you can end up dragging those little crumbs, and if you almost like squish them into the paper and you'll end up with streaks. So another little tip that came into my mind while I was showing you the eraser. So just keep those two tools on hand if you need them. All right, which petal should we go to next? Let's go up here. So I'm going to do the same little stroke thing. Okay, and now we're coming up to a new concept here, and that is where these petals are touching. And right along here, it's going to be really easy to start making these two petals kind of like mush together visually. And when we're coloring, especially when we're working from life or a photo, and we want to have the impression that we're not coloring a coloring book, we need to ask ourselves, okay, there isn't a coloring book line here in real life. How is it that we can tell these petals are separate? Well, you need to just kind of ask, okay, which one is behind? This is the one that's behind. And to make it look visually like it's behind, you're going to darken the back petal right where it meets the front one. So we're on the back petal, but we're just using a very soft motion here. We're just darkening that, and we're going to try and create a gradation. So we don't want a dark halo happening. We just want to like kind of push that into the rest of the petal. You have to be really careful. I kind of got a halo on that one, almost a dark halo, if you will. Don't want an outline. We're going to repeat this concept again and again. So if that was confusing, don't worry. I will repeat myself. I should do it on a bigger petal as well so that you can kind of see it a little more clearly. This is kind of a small petal. I do it to all of the petals as I work, but sometimes this is easier to see on a bigger petal. So let's pick a bigger petal and do the same thing so we can have a closer look at what's going on. And before I do that, I'm going to take a quick sharpen of my pencil because I'm getting a slight bit dull. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't take much. You want to keep sharp pencils, especially when you're doing these really fine creases and lines. Sometimes you can get away with a little bit duller if you're just coloring in a flat surface, but even then it's good to keep it sharp because it also helps with your pressure. Okay, so we were just talking about the petal that's behind has to be darker where the edges meet. So the edges are meeting here, right along here. So that means we need to get darker right in this section here. And so we're going to go start there, and you can sometimes do that by using a slightly circular motion and do a gradation. So you could do this, kind of go in circles and then do like a slight gradation like we talked about earlier and work your way up. So you can do that. And that's a pretty foolproof way to go. The other thing you can do is to do the same sort of idea with the flicking. So where you're going to go heavier pressure, because I haven't gone too heavy yet with my circles. I'll go a little heavier just so you can see the circular effect first and how I can do a gradation. Okay, so you can see it's starting to look, this petal's starting to look like it's behind this one because I've gone a little heavier with my pressure and tried to lighten off. However, let's do a little bit of that flick thing because there is some beautiful creases in this petal as well, and we might as well enhance those with a little bit of flicking here. I don't know if there's a better word. I had one student call this titching. I thought that was actually that worked. I think that was the word she used, titching. It was an invented word. It works. It's just to try and give the idea of what we're doing here. Kind of taking these little flick things and lightening as we go. So again, like I said, heavier and lighten off. That's already starting to look like it's visually behind this one. This one looks like it's at the back, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and just add a few of these little creases at the top. It's a great idea to cover the outlines, or not the outlines, but well, they're outlines. The outlines of the coloring page are a nice light gray, but you can just, when it's such a light gray, you can cover them with your colored pencil. Okay, so this concept is happening again a little bit right in here. You can always do a little bit of that. We don't want to go overboard because otherwise we might lose our lights right here, but we can do a little bit of this stitching coming down or flicking, because this one up here is on top. It's just folded, but it's on top. So that's a tricky little one. Let's go ahead and do that since we're there. I'm gonna, well, if you want to turn your page, you can. That will be helpful to be able to get the motion that you need to. Here, I'm just gonna do a little bit of flicking. And I may come in with a little more purple. Let's see if I can just do this first. And then maybe I can just straighten up my page and really, really softly try and add this mulberry on top of the yellow so that I don't like go overboard. Let's just see if we can do this just gently. I'm gonna call this good enough for now. At least it doesn't look like it's disjointed from the rest of the flower. All right, let's move on to another petal. Now it gets complex in this tulip up here, but we'll be fine. We're gonna go, this shape in here happens to be really nice and dark. So let's go ahead and just color it in. We'll just do soft circles, fill it in. I don't want to go too heavy yet because we have some darker colors yet to come. And if we go too heavy on our darkest patches with this mulberry color, we might not get our other colors on top. So don't go crazy heavy, but you can go heavier than some of these other sections. We can always come back with this one later, but it's always better to err on the side of slightly lighter. And now there's just a few odd little shapes in here. I'm just going to quickly fill them in. Don't sweat them. They're tiny. They don't make or break your painting. Same with this one. I'm going to just fill it in with a little bit of this kind of flicking. All right, this one is, I really like this one. It's kind of folded over. So I'm gonna do a little bit of line work this way and then a little bit this way. Again, I'm gonna wanna show that this petal is behind the one in front of it. So when I come down here, I'm gonna go a little bit darker. Let's just try that. Okay, that's probably pushed back enough. I can always add more later if it's not. Yeah, add a little bit, like, we'll see. It might need some more work on it later, but let's just move on. Do these tiny ones. And again, we're gonna need to do a little bit of darker pressure, again, right where the edges are meeting, because this is behind these two here. So let's just darken that quick. And again, you can use circular motion or a little bit of flicking. It can you can make that decision as you go. There's really not a right and a wrong answer. I tend to use a combination of the two because I want to have a little bit of the effect of the creases within the petal. But sometimes if you rely only on that, it can almost look a little bit too, I don't know, stripey. Is that a word? Stripey? I don't think it is. All right, this section is just a solid shape. One thing I'm getting really close to doing is like rubbing my hand into the work I've just done. So why don't I go grab myself a clean sheet of paper, or even this one. This one is plain on the back. This is my practice page here, but I'm going to lay my hand on there so that when I'm sliding around, I don't like go smearing through the pencil that's already on my page. So good thing to keep on hand. You can just have a scrap of paper for that. Some drawings are worse than others for how much pencil you might end up with on your hand, as well as you could really smudge your painting bad too, or I'm calling it a painting, you're drawing, you're coloring, whatever. Technically, colored pencils, when they're in their full state, I guess you want to say, when you've added a lot of layers, you really could call it a painting. Sometimes people really can't tell looking at a colored pencil piece when it's been really layered with a lot of depth and layers. You really can't always tell the difference between that and an oil painting. It's really amazing. So I'm just going to fill this in. I'm using circular motion. All right. Where do we go next? Let's do this teeny weeny little piece of this petal. Don't sweat it. I'm going to do a combination of, again, circular motion and a little bit of kind of the flicking, just so that it has a smidgen bit of texture, but also it's just kind of there, but not standing out too much. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. I'm almost feeling like I'm working in reverse, maybe how I should have, because I keep working. My hand keeps going on top of where I've already worked, but let's go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to switch angles here, because this shape here, it's easier for me to come from this direction to do the little bit of creases and line work that I need to do. So switching angles, so switch whatever, move yourself in whatever way you need to come in here with the direction that you need. I'm kind of losing that a little bit. I might need to sharpen my pencil. Not quite happy with that. Whoops. Yeah, not too happy. Let me just grab my, it's not terrible, but I'm just going to grab the kneaded eraser. Now, a kneaded eraser, if you have never seen one of these before, it's just a really soft, kind of stretchy eraser. The more you work it, the stretchier it gets. And it is perfect for erasing colored pencil when you just need to kind of lightly remove some pencil. It won't smudge. You can just more or less dab, and it just picks it up. It's not doing super well in the part where I went heavy, but let's just try and add these lines in a little bit more of a circular. There we go. I shouldn't say circular, but they're curved. I'm kind of flicking, but I just didn't like the direction I was going there. So like I say, I need to, well, this part of the pencil seems sharp enough. I do need to sharpen it pretty soon. Okay, this is just, it's very unique, this petal here. These really are tulips. I took the photo myself, but they almost look like irises with the amount of curving and ruffled petals that are here, but they were a ruffled tulip. Okay, I am covering that yellow a little bit. Like I said, you can get by with that when you're using mulberry. It's a really beautiful purple. Okay, let's come in here and just do a little bit of kind of more or less circular motion. Almost done this one. Okay, let's go down here. It's got a little bit of, I'm gonna come this way with the movement of my pencil. One more left, and then we'll be moving down. So let's just, again, pay attention to your line work. Try and get that going in the direction of your creases, your folds. I'm going a little bit darker at the base, not too heavy, but a little bit. You can do a little bit of circular motion if you need to. All right, let's go over here. Now there's a very tiny little piece of petal that's curled over here. You can leave that lighter If you cover it, don't worry. It's, again, some of these really small shapes aren't going to make or break your picture. So, and again, this is a very unique petal. A lot of weird curves, so do whatever you need to do in terms of finding a good position for your hand. It's definitely interesting. You can follow the lines that are on the page, and that'll help. And I am darkening in here. Again, this is behind, right? This one's in the front. It's curled rather. Whoops. Just scratched my paper there. Anyways, this is in the front. This is behind. So we can darken it a little bit. Take some artistic license if you need to. Sometimes you can do that. If you can't always tell, looking, say, at a photograph or even working from life, that the petal that's behind is darker where the edges are meeting, you can always just make that affect yourself. Because again, when we're looking at something in the 3D world or in real life, our two eyes can tell us that one petal is behind another. However, when we're transferring everything to 2 dimensions, like this piece of paper, that's when you can sometimes need to like kind of enhance that look by pushing your shadows a little bit more. And like I say, the best way to do that is whatever's in the back, darken it where the edges meet. I'm doing that again right here. I'm using a bit of flicking and I'm darkening because this shape here is meeting this shape here. This shape is in front. It's kind of curling. It's just the same petal, but it's curling over. So we want to darken where the edges are meeting. And darkening, that is on the back petal or the back shape. That's probably even the better way to say it. It's the back shape because this is all one petal. Sometimes they're separate petals. We're talking, this is all one petal, but the shape that's in the back gets a little darker where the edges meet. I don't know. I probably said that a few too many times now. It takes a bit to have that sink in though, honestly. All right, mostly happy with that one. I just have to add a little bit of line work right here. Okay, I am getting dull. Let me just sharpen my pencil quickly. Okay. Just add these few, again, I'm kind of doing a little bit of this flicking because I really like the way that the curving flicks, I should say. The flicks that are kind of curving, they create the little creases in our petal. So that's good. Let's call that good. Let's move on to this one. Again, we're going to be adding more colors, so we don't want to go too crazy too soon. All right, let's start with this back one and work our way forwards. Maybe be a little more logical this time. Instead of starting on the... You know what? I'm just going to pause this and I'm going to get a different sheet of paper for under my hand. I think this is probably distracting. What do you think? All right, I've got a clean sheet of paper here. Okay, let's go ahead and start with this petal here. So I'm just gonna, again, I'm working where the 2 edges are meeting. So there's a tiny petal right here and it is in front of this one. So where the edges are meeting, I'm darkening the edge of the back one. I'm using this kind of flicking motion again. I'm using that a lot in this stage. You could, like I say, if you want a little less texture, just do the same idea with circular motion. Just really emphasize the pushing the darks and the lights. Try to pay attention to that. But you don't have to do the flicking if you don't want to. All right, I'm going to move over here. It gets quite dark here, so I'm just going to push a little harder. Again, you can see I'm pushing really hard where the edges are meeting against the petals in front of it. Okay, it's really curling over here, so This is interesting. I'm going to just move my wrist and come from this side so that I can kind of get that curl happening that's slopping a little bit. Lighten up until I get a little more confidence. There we go. I think I'm getting the curve a little bit better now. That's the other thing you can do. If you're messing up a little bit on the right kind of curve in your motion, you know, as you're doing this and you're like, the curve isn't right, it's too straight or it's too curvy, just go softly, lightly until you kind of get the hang of what you're wanting, and then go heavier, and that way you don't have to erase anything. You can just emphasize the lines that are working with heavier pressure. Okay, this is curling over here, and then this thing here is even curling more. So I'm just going to do these little things, almost look like little rainbows or something. Just really curly. There. That one was a challenge. If you didn't get it perfect, don't worry. It's one of those things that just comes with practice. Don't expect it to look perfect the first time or the second time. The more you practice, the easier it'll get. Okay, let's move on to this one here. So I want to make sure that when I'm doing my line work now that I'm not getting this one too dark, because it is in front of this one, right? So that if it's the front, we need to keep it a little bit lighter. Down here it can get a bit darker because it needs to touch the petal in front of it. Okay, looking good so far. Let's move over to this one. This has got some nice curving happening as well. Okay, it's kind of funny. It changes directions of the curve here, I think. So you're gonna kind of go one way and then you're gonna go the other way. And if you're kind of wondering, okay, how come this thing is looking so pink? Isn't this a purple tulip? Don't worry, we're gonna add some more purples. And you also can take a little bit of your own artistic liberty and even go heavier with the purples that are coming up. I actually really like this color that we're using, so I probably won't go as heavy with the purple. However, if you want more purple, don't worry about it. You can just use the one we're using, the mulberry, maybe a little less, or even just go heavier with your purple on top of it. You'll be fine. And let's just go in here and then darken again. Do I need to say this again? I'm darkening where the edges meet. I think you guys all know now. Okay. I'm liking that. This one was a little bit interesting because it really, it had two petals kind of meeting, or three rather, so I had to really make sure I went dark enough in that little area, but I think it's coming. Yeah, I'm going to call that good for now. I move down to this one. This one's kind of fun. It's got some really interesting curves, so I'm going to be moving my wrist around. Like, I'm actually going to move my body to the other side a little bit so that I have more freedom to really create this beautiful curve that's happening here. So do whatever you need to do. Move your paper. Often I will move my paper. So that's the other option, move your paper. But if you're me and you're trying to avoid moving your paper too much, you can move around your paper. I would recommend moving your paper. I'm trying to keep the paper or the picture a little bit straighter for you. And let's just go. Oops, sliding myself around a little too much, or I should say sliding the paper around too much. Okay, I'm going to darken right in here a little tiny bit and bring it down. Oops, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of disconnect between these creases. Kind of clean that up. You can even softly kind of just do the line between them so that you kind of show the connection. Just do it softly. Don't have a heavy line. And again, like I say, you can kind of, this is the perfect color to use. Of all the colors we're going to be using today, this is the one that really is the most beautiful when it's mixed with your yellow. The pure purples just don't mix as well because they're right across the color wheel from yellow, and they tend to have a little too much blue in them. So, which we'll talk about color theory another day, but the mulberry works really beautifully with your yellows, so you're good to go if you're using this one. Okay, I think I like that. I don't know. I think I might have gone a little heavier here than I need to. Let's see. Maybe I'll lighten it up just a smidge. Again, I'm being maybe a bit persnickety, but I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. The beauty about flowers is that they're pretty forgiving. It's not like a portrait. If you do something kind of, maybe take a little too much artistic license on a portrait, it's not going to look like the person anymore. Flowers, yeah, you can get away with just a little more error or taking a little bit more liberty to do kind of what your own style is, and it will still look like a beautiful flower. I'm just darkening this. It's catching my eye right now as being a bit annoying, so just coming in here a little bit. Okay, let's come to this one in front and get some nice curves happening here. This one is pretty special with its curves, so pay close attention to what you're doing with your curves again and your flicking. These tulips have a lot of character, which is what I like about them, but again, this is a good opportunity to cover up those kind of gray coloring book lines. You don't have to have them show. That's why I really like light gray lines for the coloring book, because I don't know, you can actually get a really realistic looking piece when you're done. Black lines you can only really cover so well, right? Black lines kind of just stay there. Almost done this one. It gets nice and dark down here. I'm going to use a little bit more circular motion just to deepen that, and then I'll come back in with a little more flicking, but I'm just going to darken this a little bit. Okay, and then do a little bit of this. Smooth my darks out. All right, almost done. I should say almost done our tulips. Okay, let's do this cute little shape in here, because it's really, again, this whole area where we're emphasizing, it's really part of the same petal. The petal is doing its typical curling and folding, and so this is the piece that's behind. So we need to do our little darken it at the edge. Give it some texture with these lovely folds. Okay, happy with that one for now. And now we have some really unique curving going on here. So just pay attention to it, what these little lines are doing. Okay, I'm gonna cross over this line here. It's the beauty of this light pencil too, or the light lines. I can kind of just do a little bit of curving right there, because I want to just make this whole section in here just kind of almost like curl, and then it's dark. It's a dark kind of beautiful purple shadow. So I just am taking a little artistic license here to emphasize this curl a little bit more. Gotta go a little heavier there. I'm kind of slopping a little bit. So Again, I can always come and clean it up with an eraser if I've decided I've kind of gone outside the lines or done a little bit of a mess. That's one nice thing. Colored pencils, fairly forgiving if you work lightly. If you go heavy, it can be hard to get rid of mistakes if you're too heavy-handed. And if you find you are heavy-handed, don't worry. It takes practice to lighten up because it's, you know, not something that we use light pressure in everyday life when we're writing, or, you know, most things that we would do with a pen or a pencil. I mean, we don't want to go super heavy, but you know what I'm saying. This is definitely, we're working lighter than we're used to working. And having a light touch with your pen or your pencil is also good practice for holding a paintbrush, because there's definitely times you need to also have really light touch with a paintbrush. So pressure is really a significant thing in art, actually. So okay, that's working. This has to kind of connect just in here. I'm going to go lightly because it's not very dark. All right, just this little shape left, and then we're going to move on to another color. So quickly fill that in. Ooh, slopping a little bit. All right, so this is the color that you're going to now use. If you want to get this more kind of a little bit more of a bluey purple, or what you might consider a more genuine purple. So this one's violet, and if it still doesn't push it into like enough of a violet color for you, you can always throw in an ultramarine blue. I'm not going to bother with the ultramarine blue. I think I'm going to get it purple enough with just violet, but keep that in mind if you need to get a little bit. If it's like, yeah, it's just too pink for you, you can always use ultramarine. But I'm going to go in with the violet, and just basically, I don't have to do too much thinking here, because I'm just going to be putting it in my heaviest areas and just really following what I did with mulberry, but just going on top so that I'm pulling the pinky purple color a little bit closer into this purple color. So you can kind of take a little bit of your own liberty here to decide how much to put, and you can also do a little bit of line work with this violet color. And like I say, this is really the area for your personal preference to come in, because if you like a deeper purple, this is the time to deepen it. The one thing you want to avoid with this color is putting too much of it where the yellow is. It's not going to look very good when it mixes with yellow. So keep it away from your yellow, but otherwise you can use it as much as you want to deepen your shadows, add some more creases, more little, you know, folds in your petals. I'm going to try and work pretty quickly with this color without getting too sloppy. Again, take your time. It does take practice to pick up speed and not get as sloppy. Even myself, I'd start to get sloppy if I pick up speed too quickly. So it's a fine line when you're trying to work quickly and neatly. So I'm just going to throw a little bit over here. And maybe a little bit here. Yeah, let's do some at the edge of this petal. That'll look pretty. And maybe on top of these. Again, this is kind of in your court to decide how much to put. I'm not going to put much here, just because I'm intending to go darker with a few other colors. This shadow shape here does get pretty dark, so I'm going to be using some darker colors. If I go too heavy with this color, I won't get the darker colors on. So again, keep that in mind when you're working in the shadow areas. We have some other colors to go. This video would be a good one to pause and watch over more than one day. This project, you know, depending on how much time you have, might take more than one day. But I think it'll be worth it in the end. I think this is a really pretty, I don't know, painting of tulips. We'll call it a painting or coloring, whatever you prefer. All right, I'm going to move down yeah, I'll move down here. Like I said, you want to make that little deeper purple, go for it. I might come back with some more violet in a minute. Actually, doing that right now. Let's just do that. This part here seems like it needs some more of this color. It just looks a little goofy or something. I don't know what it is. It's sticking out to me right now. So, all right. I think I'm gonna call that good right away. Yes, move on. Okay. Again, just to keep in mind what you've done already with your mulberry in terms of pressure. Even if you're working a little faster, you really don't want to lose the depth you've already created. As in, you know, if you've gone heavier in some places with mulberry, try and go, that's the area you're wanting to go heavier with your violet. If you've gone lighter with mulberry, be cautious with your violet. And again, be cautious with the violet in the areas where there is yellow, which ends up being prettier because I do like the yellow kind of shining through in some places. I just think it warms it up and makes it look a little more lifelike. Maybe like there's light shining on it. Okay, I'm going to create a bit of depth right here with this color. I like this little, I don't know, shadow that's there. I'm using a bit of circular motion just to get a bit of that color at the base of this one. Again, don't push with everything you've got yet. We do have some more colors to go there. I do like this here. Again, I gotta be careful about my yellow. Don't touch it. You know what, I'm pushing here a little bit. I don't feel like I really pushed this petal behind the other one enough with my mulberry color. I'm going to do that a little bit with the violet. Okay, this is where I need to go a little heavier too, because this is, like I say, there is some beautiful shadows here and they're just full of purple. So I'm going to try and use a combination. I'm sort of using a bit of a circular motion here, but I'm also kind of doing a little bit of the flicking or linear, kind of linear circles even, just whatever I can to kind of keep the movement that's happening in this curly petal, but also not get harsh curling lines, if that makes sense. So it's just a fine balance between your soft circles and your little more dramatic I don't know, you want to call it flicking or whatever. This, I don't like what I just did. I did a no-no. I will put the purple where there was too much yellow. I think that looks ugly. So again, I'm being persnickety. If you've done that, don't sweat it. I'm lightening mine up a bit since I've been telling you, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Now I've done it. So I just lightened it with my kneaded eraser and just gonna go in with a little more mulberry. I picked the mulberry, not the violet. And when I say purple, I probably am going to use it interchangeably with violet. If I don't know, I just tend to call the violet purple for some reason, but this is not violet. This is mulberry. Okay. Hope that wasn't confusing. So many purples. Okay, I'm going to put this in there. This is the violet again. Okay, I think I'm done with the violet. And I think it's time for our dark shadows. Okay, I want to just discuss the dark purple here. Dark purple is a color that I tend to rely on quite a lot. However, it's not necessary. I realize it's not in every single set of Prismacolor pencils. You can buy them open stock, which obviously is what I've done here based on the fact it's got its own barcode, but you can definitely buy them open stock, which is what I would recommend doing if you only want a few pencils that aren't in the pencil set you have. But you can also usually make do by mixing colors. And so I want to show you how you can use the pencils that we're using in our painting today, or our drawing, coloring, whatever, to get this similar color to dark purple. So let's go ahead and just make ourselves a gradation with dark purple so you can see what the dark purple looks like by itself. Let's lighten up. I want to kind of show us the range of values that we're going to get with this pencil. Kind of moving a little fast here and maybe a little on the sloppy side. Okay, I'm going to go dark over here so you can see how dark this pencil gets. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and try and replicate this color using some of these other colors. So I've got mulberry, which we're using a lot of, and then violet, indigo, and Tuscan red. So let's go ahead and see if we can achieve that same color. Just getting the mulberry on first, and I'm going to try and create a gradation with it. Let's get some heavier pressure over here. Okay, I'm going to grab the violet next. Kind of went a little heavy with that mulberry, so it's taking a little more patience to get the violet to layer on nicely. You can see almost just those two colors together have created the same color that you can get with dark purple. And if you need to mute it a little bit or kind of dull it down, if that's a bit bright for some of the sections you're working on, I mean, that's really close. Just those two colors together, the violet and the mulberry. But you can also choose, if you desire, to dull it down a little bit. Just apply a little bit more of the indigo or the Tuscan red. I went very light with that, and I'm going to go very light with this. But it goes to show you can get by without the dark purple. So do what you have on hand. So let's go ahead with the purple first, or the dark purple rather, and then we can add Tuscan and indigo as we go. So I'll let you know when I grab those pencils, but let's just set them aside here. And the dark purple is going to just help us push our shadows even further than we already have. So let's go to our darkest places first, which is this weird little shape right here. I'm just going to go ahead and deepen it with dark purple. Again, if it's starting to feel like I'm having to push really hard to see it, just keep it sort of gentle, because we can darken it with these other two. They're going to push it further rather than like totally damage our paper by just pressing in too much with dark purple. So I'm going to go ahead here and throw a little bit of this. Again, I'm going to keep using dark purple, push my shadows. And when I start to feel like, okay, I'm not pushing them enough, I'll grab those other colors. So it won't be long, I'll be picking them up. Yes, in here, definitely I need to pick them up. I'm just going to wait till I get them in my hand to do that, because those, yeah, if I try and darken that too soon with dark purple, I'd probably go overboard. So I'm just going to come down here. This dark purple can just smooth things out. And again, I think with the dark purple, you can get away with going a little tiny bit on your yellow. It will dull it a little. However, it is a kind of a more of a red purple, and so it will blend better with your yellows than, say, the violet will, and it will definitely blend better than something like indigo will. So if you need to do any covering your yellows, or if you think your yellows are a little too intense, you can get away with a tiny bit of it. First choice for touching yellow, in my opinion, is your mulberry, but this one won't break it either. So just going around, just throwing a little bit of this on. I think pretty soon here I'm going to grab my other colors, because they're going to push it a lot deeper and darker faster than this one will. So let's just go ahead and grab them now. Okay, so I'm probably going to use these two interchangeably. I'm just going to be like grabbing one and then the other. I'll probably have one in one hand, one in the other. Don't worry, I'm going to just color with my right hand, but I'll probably just like be alternating them, because these two will mix together to make a really, really dark purple. So I'm just noticing this one's a bit dull, so I'm going to sharpen it before I get started. Always sharpen your pencils. You know what, I'm going to do them both. It's just a good practice to just keep them nice and sharp. All right, this is really fun because, oh, let's grab the brush quick. I see I've just made a mess here. If I sweep that away with my hand, we will have some bad things happening here. Okay, let's start up here, work our way up here and then come down so that I'm not getting unnecessary smudging and stuff happening. All right, so Tuscan red, indigo blue. Let's go in here. So I've got the red first, Tuscan red, or it's actually, yes, it's Tuscan. It's Tuscan red. I think the indigo blue is just called indigo. Alrighty, so I got that nice and red looking. Now I'm going to go on top with the indigo. You can see I'm not even pushing that hard, but these are just such dark colors that they are pushing the shadow very dark very quickly, which is exactly what we want. We want to get dark without having to like apply way too much pressure to our work. So I'm putting a little bit of indigo. I've still got the indigo in my hand, putting some down here, and then I'll, like I say, I'm just like going to be going back and forth between these two because they really just mix together to make a nice dark purple. So I'm going to go everywhere and just push the darks just a smidge darker. This shape here is pretty dark, so I'm going to go ahead and get it darker. Ooh, kind of went out of the line a little bit. Not too bad. You can tell by now I'm not especially perfectionistic. If you keep in the lines better than me, good for you, because yeah. You're probably spotting some spots. I have not stayed in the lines perfectly. Okay, I do like how it's working in there. And oh, sorry. I just picked up my dark purple. Sometimes I do these things almost subconsciously. I need to be careful that I tell everyone what I'm doing. All right, indigo and Tuscan again. I put the purple back down. Let's just say you could grab it as a medium because the Tuscan and indigo are going to push things really dark really fast. And if you hit an area where you're like, you know what, I need something not really dark really fast, but I want to get darker, the dark purple will be your friend here. But I know it gets confusing to have 3 pencils on the go at once. So I'll try and just stick with indigo and Tuscan. And I'll try and let you know if I pick up the dark purple. Okay, where else can I go? I'm going to go a little bit. The shape I'm noticing here, I didn't quite. Again, I'm being persnickety with my shape. If you haven't got a perfect shape down here, don't sweat it. I'm just going to try and, okay, I'm picking up dark purple. Probably could have just done it with these other two. Putting it down. Okay, back to these 2 dark ones. Okay, a little bit in here. Okay, I'm still using a Tuscan red and the indigo. I'm just pushing shadows just a little bit darker in just a few spots. I'm not going everywhere. Just where I need just a little extra punch of color or value, depth, just in the darkest spots. And sometimes I'm taking artistic license to decide where that is. If I'm feeling like, okay, these petals are supposed to be kind of separate from each other, but I'm not seeing that too clearly anymore. That's where you can kind of go, you know what? We've got to push the petals in the back just a little darker. Okay, I'm going to grab a little more dark purple to blend that in a bit. Sometimes just the indigo and the Tuscan can be a bit harsh. So, you know what? I'm going to darken this shape. This is part of this petal now here. I'm just noticing it's getting lost. So what do I have to do when it's getting lost? I need to show that it's in the back by darkening the edges of it where it meets with the little ones in front of it. There's a few funny little ones in front of it. See how that helped? It's just an amazing technique, that whole darkening in the back thing. Okay. I'm gonna work on this petal now. Again, we're just trying to push our darkest darks. A little bit down here. These are kind of like final touches, so you can decide how final touch you want to get with all this detail. I think a little bit in here. And if you found your edges of your petals are getting a little bit wonky looking, this is a time you can kind of, if you want to almost like redesign them with these pencils, you can kind of fix them up. And then again, where you darken things is in the back. So if you have to do any kind of, I'm almost getting a halo here that I'm not liking. It almost starting to look like a coloring book outline. And we're trying to kind of push it away from that look. So I'm going to try and fix that up by, okay, grabbing a bit of dark purple for the mix. I just did a combination of the Tuscan and the indigo, but it was feeling a little bit too dark there for a minute. So throwing a little bit more purple in here with soft pressure. Be careful. I feel like it's really borderline what I'm doing here. It might go goofy. So. Okay, stop before I do anything worse. Okay, let's go down here. Ooh, did you see that? I just went a little bit out of the lines, but I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to try and blend that in. You can see what I did now, can't you? Try and fix that up. So I did that with the indigo blue, but by going right on top of it with the Tuscan red, it kind of helped fix it. Just looks like there's a little ruffle or a nick in the petal now. Okay, down here. Deepen this a bit. Grabbing my dark purple again because I just want to fill this in. I don't want it to have a white area, but I don't want it to be quite as dark as what I just did. Smooth that all out a bit. I think I went a little bit overboard with my other colors. You know what? I'm going to use them and do a little bit of flicking here just to kind of accentuate the folds in the petal because it's folded all the way to the base of the petal. Again, sometimes wherever I put the indigo, I put the Tuscan so they're blended. Otherwise, you'll end up with areas that are kind of like blue and then some that are like red. So this is where you really have to keep, that's why I work the two of them at the same time. Because if you overdo one or the other, it's going to start going either too blue or too red. So let's just go in here a little bit. Again, like I said, this is kind of an interesting curl. I've kind of taken a little bit of artistic license to try and handle it because it's a really unique curl. Okay, got my, I used some Tuscan red on top of my indigo here, and right now I still have my Tuscan red, but I'm going to be applying some indigo blue on top of it right away here because as you can see, I'm starting to turn a bit red in the shadow. We don't want that, so aha, you can see where I broke the rules a little bit. This is starting to look like it's getting mushed together into this, isn't it? We need to really emphasize the edge there. It's like the edge is getting lost. So rather than go really harsh with that edge with the Tuscan red and the indigo blue, I think I'm going to grab my dark purple. So I'll just grab it now. And I'm just going to use a circular motion and try and kind of like define. I'm working within this section here, but right along the edge of this little area that's folded or kind of like curved upwards so that it pops out. Because yes, it was disappearing. And just smooth it out. Again, I still have the dark purple in my hand. It's hard to tell on the camera what I'm picking up when because they all just look dark in the camera. Okay, just going to use a small little bit of it down in this shape and then I think I'm going to call it done because we don't want to be here all day. Okay, that's good for that. I just noticed that one thing I want to like tweak just a teeny little bit, tweak a little bit, I should say, is this section here. I feel like I didn't quite finish it. So I'm just going to grab my dark purple and just kind of create a little bit more connection between these shapes. Again, if you didn't do it, don't sweat it. This area is just a small thing, but I don't know, something was catching my eye there. So just go ahead and do a little teeny bit. Okay, that's good. All right, so now we're ready for the leaves, and I want to keep them simple, but we still want depth. So what I'm going to use to start with is this lime peel. It's a green, and I'm going to just cover everything, kind of just solid, flat, and no, I'm not going to start with any kind of like texture. I'm not going to start with any of the depth techniques yet. I'm just going to cover the whole thing just with this. So I'm going to grab my pencil extender quickly, pop it on there, and just go ahead and try and use like medium pressure and just cover all of the leaves. Just fill them up solid. So again, this is a fun project to do when you're just needing some time to unwind and relax. There's really no thinking to this. We're just going to cover it all with green lime peel. So now that I've covered everything with a lime peel, I'm going to go ahead and start to create a little bit of depth using olive green. So I'm going to go in and do kind of the same concept of just thinking, hey, what's behind, what's in front? Repeat that again, but that's really where our depth is going to start happening. So I could really just pick any leaf and think, okay, there's a little bit of something behind, like this one's a little behind that one. And again, paying attention to where edges meet and just using this kind of circular coloring motion. Or if you want to start getting a little bit more of the texture, you can actually just create some lines as well to color these with the olive green. So again, if you want to practice for a quick second, I'm just going to move this. Some long lines would be kind of like, you know, you don't even have to do as much of the heavy at the beginning if you don't want. Just, you know, practice a little bit of this. You can even sometimes do a little bit of this back and forth like that to create your texture. As long as you make sure that where the edges are going to meet another edge, you're darkening that edge, if that makes sense. So I'll repeat that concept on top of our leaves. So let's just get this back in the picture here. And so like this one, it curves like this. So it means right in here, it's going to have some, I don't know what happened there. That little blob must have been a piece of dirt or something. I don't know, or a little bit of fuzz. It's too late now. It's embedded into my thing. But anyways, you get the idea. I went darker where this edge met this edge because this leaf is folded. This part is on kind of on the top of the fold. Darkening this little cute shape here, darkening this. So again, I'm just going to be going over everything with the olive green, except that I'm creating the depth by thinking wherever it's just behind another petal or another leaf, whatever, it's going to be a bit darker. So I'm just going around and doing this everywhere. And as you can see, I'm kind of just kind of creating length in my strokes here. It's not really a flick, although sometimes it is. Oops, I just did something kind of goofy there. Just a minute. I could decide which one is going to be in the front or the back, but what I just did here is made the front one dark. So let's just erase here. I know I'm being persnickety. This is a small shape, but okay. Let's just erase that and grab my line peel. Oh dear, it needs a sharpen. I'm going to try and get away without sharpening it. So line peel, and now technically the one, oops, a little bit more. The one that's behind is this one. So I'll try and create that effect of it being behind. Ooh dear. I'm doing it a little sloppy. Kind of. See if I can fix that. I can always widen it a little bit too. I think that looks better. Not perfect, better. Okay, let's just fill this in. There's a fold or kind of a twist in this leaf. Again, showing the darkness where it kind of curves, and whatever's behind is going to be a little bit darker. So this part's fairly relaxing. You just have to kind of keep asking yourself that same question about, well, which one is in front, which one is behind, and always darken the one that's behind. It's amazing how that works though, isn't it? Like, you can create so much depth so quickly with that. I think there's a little piece of something here that's kind of behind too, so I'm just going to darken it. Part of my problem, I think, is that this is already getting dull. I'm going to try and work a little bit more, and then I got to sharpen it. Do a little bit of something here. Again, this is a funny shape here, but again, it's behind, so we might as well try and give it the depth that it needs. This one is way behind, so we'll darken it where the edges meet again. And here I'm just gonna darken this shape. I'm not gonna worry about trying to get any texture back there. It's so tiny. All I'm gonna do with this one is just darken it with olive green still. Okay. Get a little bit of texture on this one. It's a little bit bigger. A little more room for us to create our texture. Now let's zoom in a little bit. Right down here. There we go. Work on the base a little bit more, just so you guys can see as close as possible what exactly I'm doing. Make sure I'm all the way in, and let's work over here, and then we'll go back over there. This one's again a fold. All right, so the two dark colors for the leaves, believe it or not, are going to be the indigo blue. Again, we're looking super dark here, and then purple, dark purple. Okay, let's go ahead, and we're basically doing exactly what we did with our olive green. We're just pushing it a little bit. So, you know, when we want to get our shadows here, I'm just going to move in here. We're just going to put a tiny bit of the indigo. And I'm going to put a little bit down here. I didn't really do a very good job down here with the olive green, did I? You can always throw more olive green if you needed to, but I'm seeing that I didn't. I probably should have pushed it a little further, but it's okay. There's always other colors, right? These are our last colors, so we will push the best we can with them, but again, so you're just going to go in your darkest areas, so you should have some guideline already set for yourself because you did this already with your olive green, but if not, just pay attention, keep thinking that same concept. Okay, which one is behind? Hopefully you won't have to think about it, because hopefully it's just there because you've already got your lights and your darks kind of placed where they need to be. I'm just noticing this one doesn't have any olive green on it, and I think it looks a little too bright, so I'm just putting a touch of it there. Okay, so I slid in closer so you can actually see what's going on. Now I've put the indigo in some of these, and I'm going to put a very, very soft bit of line work in our dark purple. Very soft. It's just going to neutralize the greens just a little bit, make them look a little more natural. And I'm pushing quite lightly. I don't want a lot of pressure at all. This is just kind of like a very final touch to the leaves. Just adds a tiny bit of life. Okay, I haven't got my indigo fully in here yet, so let's just do that. Just pull that in, and then I'll have to move my page in a quick second. Putting the purple on there. You can tell when the purple gets on there because it just adds that depth that you can't quite get with indigo. Again, I'm mainly working now. I'm not using the circular motion. I'm just doing a lot of this kind of, I don't know if you even want to call it flicking, or just more like lines, kind of linear coloring, because I'm not putting it, I don't know, I tend to think of the flicking as having a little more pressure, but you could call this light pressure flicking. How's that? All right, we are on to our final step, the lettering. And this is really the heart of our project, right? The message that he is risen. Now, I'm going to go ahead with this and use just a black because I want just a classic look. However, you could use any springy colors, any of the colors we've used. But if you really would prefer to just have the letters like a solid black that's printed, I did provide that in the listing on Etsy, just because I'm going to just be honest. When you fill in these letters that are a coloring page with black, they're a little bulkier. So if you want them just very fine and thin, and you don't really want to have to go into these lines, it's kind of funny. As much as this seems like the simplest step, it has a slight amount of, I don't know if pernicketyness to it, but trying to stay in the lines is almost more important here than anywhere else. That sounds silly, but anyways, if you prefer to just have used a coloring sheet where you don't even have to fill this in yourself, you're welcome to do that. Or, like I say, you could make it quite pretty using a variety of colors. So do what works for you. This is actually a Bible verse, or part of a Bible verse. This phrase comes from Matthew 28, verse 6, when the angels said to the women who came to the empty tomb, "He is not here, he is risen, as he said. Come and see the place where the Lord lay." And that's amazing. Can you imagine having been there that morning? And not only just the fact that he rose, but he promised that he would. Not only did he promise that he would rise from the dead, he promised anyone who believes in him could have eternal life through him. It's amazing. So that's the hope we have in the resurrection. It's not just Jesus rose, but because he lives, we can live too. So that is our real reason for celebrating. I realized I did not start with something under my hand. This is definitely a step you would want to cover your tulips, because you definitely don't want to do any smudging at this point. Yeah, I feel like I've got to go slow here, even though we're just coloring in a solid color. It's also pretty important to keep your pencil sharp when you're getting close to the edges, because again, these are such fine, they're not even fine lines, it's just, if you want to keep your letter thicknesses kind of consistent with each other and stay in the lines, you need to take your time here. But again, this would be a good time to put on some music or just relax as you do this. Well, thank you everyone who stuck with me till the end. I would love to know your thoughts on this tutorial. Do you enjoy the slow process? Do you enjoy something a little faster? I'm really open to hearing what your thoughts are, and I look forward to doing more art with you soon in the future.